Okay, so should you have or allow um, talking about politics and religion in the workplace? Of course, the generic idea is no, you don't want people having discussions about, politics and religion at work under normal circumstances on a regular basis. You really kind of want to curb that because it just can create unnecessary divisiveness, unnecessary perceptions that they don't get along, or just, unnecessary and also just kind of a lack of focus, right? Because if people just start focusing on the idea that they think differently about this topic or that topic, then whatever the core mission of the organization or the task at hand is can kind of get lost in a little bit in that stuff sometimes. So you really want to not not encourage too much of that. When people start talking about stuff like that too much, you kind of want to move them back on topic, or you want to just encourage them to have understanding views and move on to something else. But more importantly, what do you do in terms of in times of a crisis? So, for example, during things like pandemic crisis or a crisis like 9/11, do you say, nobody talk about that, nobody have, of course not, because it's something that everybody, people are affected by, and people may need help, so you can't, so telling them that the topic is off limits because it might bend people towards political discussions in that kind of situation doesn't work well, because there's a crisis management sort of matter at hand, and you kind of want to be an organization and be a place that supports others and supports whatever they might be needing in terms of help, in terms of, or just recommend to them someone that can help them, things like that. You kind of want, and also when coworkers feed off of each other when it comes to subjects like that, they can help each other. And so if you forbid the topic, then you're kind of forbidding them from being able to say, oh, this is going on with you because of this pandemic or whatever. Maybe I can help. Yeah, I know someone who can, just whatever have you. You kind of eliminate the opportunity to be a place of assistance if you say um, nobody talks about, such subjects at all. But there has to be a limit, right? There has to be kind of like, you have to kind of manage to what extent, and the manner of discussions that can be had, and to what extent you're going to allow it to get political, and to what extent you're going to allow it to be like, oh, you believe this because you have this religion or whatever. When it starts veering in that direction, that's when you want to curb it and kind of discourage it, and realize that it's just going to create, divisiveness and stress for everybody. And you don't want that, because it makes, you don't want to make, everybody needs to be comfortable. So so I would just say, like, in the advent of a crisis, for example, like, um you know something completely crazy, like 9/11, that kind of shocks everybody. I remember being, where I was at the time, we had a television set that, for the first week of that we were all allowed to watch in the morning. Like, I remember walking in, and there was a TV set, and I didn't know that 9/11 had happened until I walked in there, and somebody dragged me to the break room and told me about it. And I remember thinking, all right, well, that's stupid. That's not possible. But of course, it was possible. It happened. So I'm just saying, for example, in an event of something that's like a really big deal that shocks everybody, it's actually really therapeutic and a really good thing to do, to kind of just have everybody like watch the news and watch what's going on at first, the first couple days, because it helps them kind of process it together and think about it together. So at the end of the day, like, there's nothing that makes a crisis easier to manage and less shocking for the soul and for the brain than it is to have other people to think about it with, that are going through the same thing, or in some way feel affected by it in a similar way as you. There's nothing that makes it easier than that. So in that kind of setting, I think it's incredibly supportive and helpful to do that. But beyond like the first few days or so, especially in something that's really prolonged, like a pandemic, and that just becomes like purely political or something after a while, you definitely don't want to go on and on like, oh, let's I think that in a work setting, maybe like the month of March, maybe like a few days out of that would have been the time to have them, like, to have everybody kind of watching and find out about what to do about the pandemic, and that's it. Beyond that, you don't want, um, because then after that, it suddenly becomes about opinions and politics and this and that. Plus, it's just like distracting and weird and whatever. So yeah. Um, So what to do in those events is like you kind of want to focus on decisions and movements that show supportiveness and that show like we're all in this together, and also any sort of crisis management assistance that the individuals involved may be needing, that they can be heard and they can be supported in that. But beyond that, you don't want to get let the conversation veer too much into differences of opinion about politics or differences of opinion of feelings about religion, because that's completely distracting and a waste of time and not supportive. Instead, it can end up being just, you know, everybody making each other uncomfortable and being more so problematic. So those are the kinds of different things to think about in what kind of you know plan you want to implement. Just where the focus is on is just emphasizing approaches that really that are deliberately intended to be supportive and thorough in that way, and allowing for mutual understanding and talk about things if someone needs help or wants support, but nothing beyond that. That no arguing or fighting that has nothing to do with somebody needing anything. You want to prevent that from happening. So that's pretty much it. Those are the some of the thoughts. So those are the some of the things that one should think about when it comes to how to approach those kinds of issues when they arise and surprise us as they seem to do from time to time.